Thanks, Clark. I'm getting notes as I move forward. Uh, First, let me certainly, Clark, thank you for your comments. And then, Rogine, it's good to see you again. And all of those who are affiliated with Blueprint Houston, let me just say good morning to each and every one of you. And I know on the Planning Commission, Bill Baldwin was recognized. Where's Bill? Oh, there's Bill. I owe you a phone call. And then Susan Alleman. Where's Susan? There's Susan. Thank you. And Marty, where's Marty? Sitting next to Susan. Good to see you, Marty. And then Christine. Hi, Christine. You know, Christine has one of the best back-to-school programs in the city, so I look forward to being with them again. And then Marty, we keep saying we need to get together, so let's get on my calendar, okay, to make that happen. Again, let me say good morning to everyone, and let me just say what an exciting time to be in the city of Houston. Okay, let me just start off by that. 2017 was an incredible year on so many different levels. But I think 2018 brings some exciting opportunities. Let me just say, Clark, I agree with everything you're saying. Certainly the focus need to be now on giving greater meaning and fulfillment to the general plan for the city of Houston, especially in light of everything that has taken place over the last several years. And I'm not just going to focus on 2017, but over the last several years. Whether we look at events that took place, the Memorial Day event in 2015, the Tax Day flood on April 17 of 2016, Harvey, of course. But then at the same time, we are a city that's constantly in evolution. And more people are coming to our city. It's not like they're running away, but they are coming to the city. And so it's our privilege to work, and my privilege to work with people like Councilmember Dave Robinson, Councilmember Jack Christie that's here, and the other partners that we have on City Council. But we are a growing and dynamic city. I reflect back, I'm a native Houstonian. This city has changed so much over the last 25 years. It's just a different city. And I think there were some numbers that just came out from the Planning Commission when Pat Walsh leaves, and that we are a growing city. There are more people that are in this city, and they continue to come into our city. And over the next 10 to 15 years, we are expecting a lot more people to come into the city of Houston and to come into the region. And with that being the case, the question is, what sort of city are we going to design and build for the future? Because it's not about just designing and building a city for today or yesterday, but how shall we design and build this city for the future? And we made some decisions in the 1990s that are impacting us quite a bit today. And in so many ways, we are now having to play catch up. But the city is growing. When I came into office in 2016, and I was speaking before the commissioners of TxDOT, what I said to them is that we need a paradigm shift, even as it relates to transportation. We need a paradigm shift because for us, we have built highway capacity. And so 610, it's the Beltway, it's the Grand Parkway, and as we have built that roadway capacity, then we have developed around those highway capacities. And so the growth has come, and we have all been significantly impacted by it. We have built it, they have come. And just like on I-10 West, we spent $2.2 billion in building I-10 West, expanding it, including the feeder roads, about 26 lanes. And yet it still is one of the most congested freeways now in the state of Texas. And so there needs to be a paradigm shift, even as we look to transportation. And it does have to be more multimodal, and it has to be real when we talk about multimodal, because it impacts everything it impacts our growth and our development. And so light rail has to be a part of the equation. And it can't just be light rail where we are today and stop. we've got to find ways to do even more. And even though the financial mechanisms have changed, we can't depend on the type of dollars from the feds that could have relied upon in the 1990s. We still have to find ways to make that happen. So we do need more light rail as a part of the equation. Commuter rail has to be a part of the equation. Bike lanes. And the city of Houston has approved the bike lane, the bike plan, but we got to give greater meaning to that. You can approve it, but you also have to have resources to go along with it to build out the infrastructure. And right now, there's only about $1 million in our CIP. We really need about $5 million a year more, but we need to improve and provide that added infrastructure. And then we have to design and build a city that's more walkable, pedestrian-friendly. Okay, because nowadays, and especially this millennial population, they want to be able to walk to retail or walk to their job or employment opportunities. So we've got to take a look at that. And when we talk about redesign or design a city, we have to take advantage of where we develop these projects, close to where the transit stations are, transit-oriented development, or where the big business centers are, okay? We have to take full advantage of that. So we have to be much, much smarter on how we address our transportation concerns and needs as we move forward. Now, years ago, in the development world, the city gave $15,000 a door to establish residential units downtown. And by all means, when you look at it on balance, it has achieved its purpose. Now, there are thousands of people that are living downtown, okay? But we also have to now, at the same time, focus on neighborhoods and how they develop. And we need affordable housing, in our city, because we still need to have a city that's not just for the affluent or just for the very, very poor, but you have to have a city for those in between, okay? And so we need to maintain an affordable city. But let me back up before I shift to that, because the transportation component is very, very important. Because I think one of the reasons why we fell short, even on the Amazon deal, is because they placed a great deal of emphasis on transportation. If they're going to bring 50,000 employees, they want their employees to be able to get from point A to point B in an efficient, timely fashion. And so that was something that they very much looked at, transportation, okay? And what we have today on highways, highway capacity, simply won't move us towards the future. We have to do a lot more. The other thing is that depending on that transportation grid will also impact drainage and flooding, because they're very much related. They're not separate and apart, okay? Because you build all these roads and all around us, and the development comes, and then when it comes to the rain and the flooding, it comes down through the city heading towards the Gulf. So all of these things are interconnected. And so when we are designing our city as we move to the future, we have to look at how things are connecting. I see Councilmember Mike Knox back there. Didn't see you. Good to see you, Councilmember Mike Knox. And so, did I miss somebody else? Oh, Councilmember Amanda Edwards and Councilmember Green, they keep coming in on me, okay? So I'm going to have to put a bell on them, so when they come in, the bell will just ring, But that connectivity is so critically important on how we plan moving forward. And hence, up to, especially through the 90s and moving up, everything was so disjointed, so to speak, that we wasn't taking a look at everything. So transportation becomes critically important. And then we are now in the post-Harvey era, which has changed the equation quite a bit, okay? Things have changed. Pretty soon, later on this week, if not next week, We'll be looking at how we develop in the city of Houston, where we are no longer just factoring in a 100-year floodplain. We'll be looking primarily at a 500-year floodplain or more, because the 100-year is not doing anything. And so as we develop, as we build going forward, we have to take into account that we have to build a stronger, more resilient city, which means things the way we have done in the past can't continue to do it that way. We have to make the changes. Because if we continue to do the same thing the way we have done it in the past, the rains will continue to flow, areas and neighborhoods will flood, people will be displaced, or their homes will be flooded, and we will be in the situation where we are today, where thousands of people are in homes or have homes that need to be repaired or rebuilt. And so the question is, if we change the way we build, change our ordinance, where we are no longer looking at a 100-year, but looking at a 500-year. Some will say, well, Mayor, to build, that may cost even more. That may cost us more. Well, the answer is, to some degree, yes, the answer is true. Yes, it will cost more. But continue to do the same thing. A lot of people get flooded and out. Or you become a more resilient city, costs a little bit more, but you mitigate the risk of flooding. So which would you prefer? Okay? The reality is that we live in the Bayou City. Okay? But we're going to have to do a number of things in combination. Changing how we build, how we develop is one. And that's something we need to do. Okay? And then for example, there are multifamily units that got flooded, let's say in the Greens Point area. They flooded in 15, flooded in 16, flooded in 17. They sought another permit to build again moving forward. And we've slowed that up and said, let's think about this. But they get money from HUD. And what we are saying to HUD, if you give money to the same developer to do the same thing, they're going to flood again. And so you're providing funding for failure. Okay? Now, we changed the way we build. We widen our bayous to provide more capacity. We put in more detention basins. Okay? There are a number of other elements we need to do to mitigate the risk of flooding. And then we need additional monies for where homes, for example, that would still have flooded if we had done all of these other mitigation factors. Yeah. Then it is more comprehensive in nature. But how we design, how we develop, how we build as we go forward becomes now even more critical in the post-Harvey era. And so we need to design and build a city that's stronger, and design and build a city that's more resilient, and transportation is interwoven with all of that. And you can't separate the two out, and that's important. And then on the other end, we have communities and neighborhoods that have been overlooked, under-resourced, and underserved for decades. For decades. And we don't want a city of have and have-nots. We don't. We want a city of opportunity for everybody. That doesn't mean that every neighborhood ought to look the same, because we're the most diverse city in the country. And so we want to maintain the culture, the history, the personality of these neighborhoods. But that doesn't mean that we have communities that are not opportunity neighborhoods for the people that live in those areas. And hence, the concept of complete communities. And essentially what that means, if you take any community, regardless of who's living there, regardless of the culture or the personality, there are certain things that are important. Housing is a critical component, and affordable housing. Quite frankly, mixed income housing. Because if you don't have the mixed income housing, you're not going to get the quality grocery stores. And so there are too many neighborhoods where there are food deserts. Quality grocery stores are not there. And there are too many communities where you don't have financial institutions. I take that back. The banks have gone, but the Cash Americas are there. Because as those institutions have left, others have come in. And so you have people who are paying much, much more. They get their check, they go cash, they get for less. Okay? Education becomes critically important because people do look at where the schools are. And if we don't work very closely with the schools and they close, consolidate, move, it has a direct impact on those neighborhoods. Retail, business, job opportunities are important. Safe communities, public safety becomes important. Parks, green space, and not just a park in name, but a quality park where people and kids and seniors and others can go. All of those things are critically important. Now, how do we achieve that with a city that has limited resources? What it says is that we cannot do it by ourselves. And so we have to ask financial institutions like banks through their community reinvestment programs. You have to ask nonprofits, faith-based organizations, developers and others to come in and do what they can do and overlay it on top of one another. But you can't do everybody at the same time because the resources don't exist. And so in this case, we've taken 5, starting off with 5. And then people will say, Mayor, but what about my community? Does not my community qualify? And the answer is, yes, it does. But if we try to do everybody at the same time, we're going to continue to do what we've been doing the very same way at the same time. So nothing changes. So you really have to concentrate your resources. And there are thousands, for example, of nonprofits. But if they come and overlay what they are doing, along with the faith-based community, financial institutions, and others, we can have a transformational impact in a shorter period of time. At least that's the goal. And you have to work on many different fronts all at the same time. Now, what I will tell you is that in meeting and having town hall meetings in all 5 of the communities that we have identified, the turnout has been amazing. Simply amazing. In every community that we have attended, pretty much standing room only in each one of these communities. Because if people think that something is going to happen beyond what has been in the past, then the enthusiasm is there. And so from my vantage point, and where I need your help, is that we have to build a city where, regardless of where you live, you see a neighborhood of opportunity. Not a dumping ground, not a community that's been ignored, but a neighborhood of opportunity where we still respect and value people's history, their culture, their personality. But it doesn't mean that any community is less or ignored. Where we elevate all of the neighborhoods, and the city in turn is elevated as well. But it calls for a very collective effort, and that's why if there was ever a need for Houston Blueprint Houston, the need is right now. And I look forward to working with you. I look forward to you challenging me as your mayor. Let's have a robust conversation. But when all is said and done, the talk has to stop and the plan has to get executed. Because sometimes we talk far too long and we stay where we've always been. And what I've said is that I've got a limited period of time to make some things happen. And so urgency is the word for me. Let's move with a sense of urgency, and let's take advantage of the fact that I think people recognize after Harvey that we need to make things happen. Lastly, and let me put this note in, I'm going to go to my seat. We've had Harvey, 51 inches of rain. Okay? Every road, every street underwater. Then we had the sleet, the snow, the ice. We are rebuilding homes that need to be remediated, repaired, rebuilt. But it also, these weather conditions impact our infrastructure, our roads. So in January, when I came in 2016, the Pothole Initiative, let me just say to you, and I think hopefully, the common sense will take hold. After Harvey, followed by sleet and snow and ice, it creates a lot more potholes. And so like next week, we're going to remind people, call 311, okay? Because once you get that ice in there, where the street was already weakened, it pulls it apart, okay? So in building a city, constant maintenance is critically important. And resources are vital. Because you cannot build a strong city. And as they say in biblical times, you cannot build brick without straw. You can't. So we need to have a very vigorous, robust conversation about how we build this city for the future, but build it stronger and more resilient. Let me also acknowledge Councilmember Carlos Cisneros as well. Thank you so very, very much.